Got ourselves a rainy day out there, so we won't be making an outside video. We'll have to make an inside video instead. And I actually have something I'm really excited about because I have never had a Victron set up quite like this. So I've never had the Multi-Plus or a Serbo. And the Serbo is really the driving factor here. If you have a newer Escape, you already have this. A lot of DIYers will install the Victron Multi-Plus, the whole setup, right? I've seen a couple other rigs with this setup, but it's very rare. Usually it's a pretty modest setup. A lot of times when you get solar from a manufacturer, they'll put a like 100-watt panel on there, like the cheapest crap, just to say it has solar. Well, this is a fancy system. Now, my favorite trick about this is the fact that I can check our system from anywhere. There are definitely times when Emma and I will go out and explore, and so we'll check the cameras while we're out, but you also wonder, hey, how is our solar doing? How the battery's doing, for example. So this is a trick to be able to do that. Now, if you're familiar with this little guy, I ran an update on this recently, and it actually changed some of the view options that we have. And you can change back and forth, but I kind of like this one. So, for example, it shows offshore power. We're getting 492 watts, 30 watts from solar. On this side, 442 watts is going to the 120 system, alternating current, and 83, 76, 84 watts for direct current, DC. 12-volt wiring there. So 99% battery, that's coming from the smart shunt, 13.74 volts, and we're pulling a little bit of current. So it would take about 9 days to get us up to 100%. But I could go ahead and swap over, and that makes it a little bit easier to see. This is nice, right? Shore power, AC loads, DC load, solar yield, all that, right? It makes it a little bit like, where's the power going? That's pretty cool. And if I come over, we have notifications and alerts, and then we can go into settings. Now, if you're within Bluetooth range of any of your Victron systems, of course, you can check this. But if you're not, instead of showing local, this would just be empty. But we can go over here, and we have VRM. So there's the Liberty right here. So and you can see it's online. The way we get this to work is to go into settings, go down, go to Wi-Fi, and then we can go ahead and connect to our Wi-Fi. Once we've done that, we can go into VRM online portal, and it'll go ahead and give you the information that you need, specifically the VRM portal ID. Now, we can take that information and go to victronenergy.com on our computer. It'll take a second. And then we can go up to the login here, and you don't have a login yet. We can click on VRM. You can create an account. Then once you create the account, you can say, oh, I have a Serbo, for example. I want to set that up. And using that code up there, it'll go ahead, they'll handshake, off we go. It'll automatically attach it to your account. Now, there's a lot of really, really good information in here, just by default. Now, I'm by no means an expert. I just started looking into this, but I think it's actually quite fascinating. Now, because our trailer always has internet, and I do have a video on that as well, I have multiple videos on that, it's very easy to do, this guy will always communicate out, and I can always see everything. So, looking at this page, this is kind of the main dashboard area. This is really, really neat. Now, I'm not an expert, but this is more than I need for the most part. So I can zoom in here. I've got, yeah, look at that. Got a little graph. How much power am I taking at a given time? And this information, by the way, is very useful, especially if you're at an RV park. They're going to charge you. Do your guys' numbers about add up, or are they charging you twice what they should be? For example, we can see where the power is going, you know, to AC loads. This is very similar to what we're seeing on that little screen. And the part that I care about, because we're almost never plugged into shore power except for during this trial run here at this RV park. So for the most part, the photovoltaic charge is what I'm going to care about. So this is really, really neat. And then you can see, like, see battery voltage, all that good stuff. And I also care about the usage, right? So are we using more than we were expecting to? Do we add a new appliance, for example? Maybe an air fryer or an air conditioner, something like that. We're trying to run that off grid. This information is extremely useful. You can also tell, based on historical data, do I have a solar panel that's gone bad? If we scroll down, we can see a chart. This chart is by no means representative of our typical usage because we are only hooked up at an RV park. We very recently installed solar. But one thing we can see, for example, is that our battery's minimum was 10% state of charge. The maximum was 100. So at some point, and this is probably when I was doing my initial test, and then again here on these dates, we actually left and went up to Canada. and then we fully charged, and then I did another a little bit of a discharge because apparently we lost power for some point in the middle of the night, right? This is quite interesting, and this would also be very interesting for those home installations, right? But that just doesn't apply here. So you can see this, this information will say, okay, overnight, are we getting to 10%? Well, let's add some battery capacity. And then, okay, we've added battery capacity. Should we add more solar? Do we need to figure this out somewhere? Do we need to add a generator? Or, you know what, we're honestly using a lot of power. Can we go ahead and cut that somehow? But this is actual legitimate historical data, factual points. There's no real guessing here. And something that I really like is like solar, 4.8 kilowatt hours. And that's just what we produced in the last 30 days, which really, frankly, surprises me because I would not think that we would have gotten that much power. But the cool thing about this is that the Victron app only goes back 30 days. It doesn't have a very long memory. But we can actually change this to the last 6 months. The Multi Plus or Servo, one of them has much more capacity for storage, and they may very well be saving this data on the VRM system, on the server. It doesn't take much storage at all. It's just mostly a spreadsheet. So you can look at a lot more historical data here. That's pretty neat. Now, if I go into advanced here, you can customize all of this, which is really neat. So you can add as much or as little as you want. So if I'm not gonna say 30 days is good enough here. The PV yield, photovoltaic yield, is something that I really, really like here. I really, really like this. And then, of course, you can see as I move through one graph, it actually configures a point on the second or third or fourth, and then it's basically just widgets, but all of these graphs as well, which I really appreciate. So, no, that's really, really neat. And it's so easy to set up. Again, grab the VRM ID, go to create an account, right? We just used our email and a password, and then just say, hey, this is my product. Off you go. Now, if you're concerned about it, of course, you can also add another password so that not just anybody can go ahead and configure this. This is something that I've done. And a few more navigational things that are in here. So device list for the Liberty, which is what we called our rig. We have our gateway, which is that Servo, the VE bus system, which is our Multi Plus, which is the inverter, converter, all that good stuff. And then we've got our shunt, which is what monitors the battery. And then we have our solar charge controller. We will also add in a second charge controller in here, and it'll show up right like that. Now, this is also really neat. So what we can do if we don't have a dongle, and I don't have one, we can go ahead and download the existing files in here. So we can configure, say I want to remove the generator portion out of this dashboard. So we don't have a generator, we never will. And if, for example, we ever had a generator, it would actually look like shore power. So we can go ahead and remove that out of here. This is something I plan to do in the future. But you can make little changes, right? What priorities do you get? And for example, if I'm on grid, do I want to make sure that I'm not pulling power when it's got a peak rates? So what we can do in that case is actually tell it, hey, don't pull power, say between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Just go ahead and only solar or generator. It'll go ahead and not pull power at that time, and then it'll reconfigure. And so if you're tied in the grid, it's only giving power, should be increasing your rates. These are some things that you can do in here. If you have a custom firmware, you can run that in there, or an updated firmware, you can do that right there. So there are some interesting settings in here. So for example, we've named ours the Liberty. You have your portal ID there. I believe that you can add in multiple different servos and things like that. That should be no problem. You can turn the inverter charger on or off. If, for example, you are away and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to shut this off, you can go ahead and turn it off here. You can also give it an installation avatar. So we actually put our little logo right there. That's kind of a neat thing. There are all sorts of tools for, especially for on-grid / off-grid, feeding the grid. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with like full solar forecasting, predicting how much you should have to pay, running reports just to make sure that you're not getting ripped off, things like that. But the reality is you don't need to worry about this at all. And a lot of these things, if you don't use it, don't worry about it if it's already set. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we can go in here, and one of the most interesting things, right, is that you can have a GSM modem. So there's a module you can plug in, including a GPS module. So we use different trackers in our rigs. One example would be like an air tag that has the speaker disabled, which is an easy enough process. So we go ahead, disable that, pop it in here, and then just check on it every so often. If it hasn't checked back in, we swap the battery. We do that on our bikes and our truck and all that good stuff, and then there's usually going to be a second unit. In this case, definitely a second unit, because these they grow more wheels and drive away. So if you wanted to, you can actually pick up that GPS module, plug it in here, and it'll tell you exactly where the unit is. That is a handy thing, and most people wouldn't consider that the Victron might have a GPS. So kind of cheap security there. You have an option for generator control, all that good stuff. There's a lot of interesting tools in here, and while I'm in here, I'm actually going to correct the date and time. So the time that we are in, let's see, we're in America, we are in, let's see, Eastern, Central, US Mountain Standard, we are in Pacific Standard Time. Yeah, there we go. All right, and just like that, it goes ahead and it updates, and we have the correct time now. That's awesome. So the money I was going to put into the VE bus module, whatever they call that, where you have a USB setting on one end and then an RJ45 Ethernet connection on the other. I'm going to go ahead, instead of putting the money into that, I may very well just put it in the GPS, because we can go ahead and remote configure these. If for some reason you wanted to, you can actually add photos into here, which is cool. If we had more than one of these, like, it might be something, especially if there was like a remote troubleshooting we wanted to do. Hey, unplug this wire, connect this, or like the room or something like that. But again, not something we have an issue with. And then there are event logs. So you can see if you give access to this to somebody else, you can see who accesses what and what they do, which is kind of neat. So yes, a little bit nerdy, but there's a lot of cool things that you can do. And just to show you, I can go ahead and in the Victron app, VRM there, the Liberty, and it's going to take me to the Serbo. Give it a second. VRM online portal. You'd think it would just take you to the portal. And there we are, so we can see and control everything. Oh, it also shows us the weather. I did not expect that. After I updated the location, it'll give me the weather for the area. That is really, that's a nice little thing. Really cool tool. I just thought you guys might appreciate it, especially for Escape owners. There is a control here that you can turn up or down remotely. If, for example, you don't want to make a mistake, you can turn how much power are you pulling from the pedestal. Are you able to pull from the pedestal, for example? It's a really neat thing. And so you have just full control. I just thought that was really cool. An extra bonus. Thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.